At the request of the Ministry of Magic, Hogwarts will, until further notice, play host to the Dementors of Azkaban, until such a time as Sirius Black is captured.
Messrs. Colin, who's probably not seen it, Paul, who has most definitely watched us in the wrong order, and James, who's probably written an essay on it, present to you this Seismic Cinema review of The Prisoner of Azkaban. So welcome, James.
Thanks for having me. Well, say having me. I'm always on it, but that was quite good. That I really like that.
Yeah, just came to me some kind of late night inspiration. So, so welcome new and returning viewers. We are Seismic Cinema, and you can follow us on X or Twitter, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Facebook. We have both a Facebook page and a community group, and we'd love to have you as part of that. You can also listen to us or watch us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Amazon Music. And just want to take a wee second just for a wee call to action. So we're been sitting for a while on 148 subscribers on YouTube, and looking at the stats, 58.6% of viewers over the last 30 days do not subscribe. And as Dumbledore famously said, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to click that subscribe button. So you guys know what to do. Hit that button and subscribe to the channel. We are part of the Podpack Collective, featuring all those names that you can see there. So make sure you search up the Podpack Collective on social media and check out all of these amazing podcasters.
Hello, we are Two Girls, One Reusable Cup, a podcast all about living a low-waste lifestyle in your 20s, hosted by Beth and Marie. We are just your average consumer trying to make the best decisions for people and planet. And we mess up. A lot.
And the next morning had a massive hangover and I was like, where's my reusable straw? No, my prized possession.
You know, toothpaste is like one of the jumping off points of this podcast. And it also was one of the jumping off points of my very large dentist bill.
And they put it in just standard plastic cup with a plastic lid. But don't worry, folks, they put a paper straw in it, which I think I slurped twice and then it disintegrated.
Wait, you've never learned how to ride a bike?
So kudos to my dad, he tried to teach me and I was just a pain.
I love how unforgiving you are of the fact that this was 1,800 meters above sea level. But where was my quiche?
Grab a cup of tea, sit down with us, and come and join the Sustainable Support Group.
And a special shout out to our good friends, What's the Script? And you never know, they might get their customary mention at some point during the episode. And you should definitely check out their recent reviews. I've just been checking out the We're the Millers review this morning, so you should definitely check that one out.
Hello everyone, Chris here, a co-host of the podcast What's the Script? If you're interested in listening to myself and my co-host Craig having a laugh while hosting a movie review podcast, why not give us a listen? We review movies old and new, dropping in fun trivia along the way. We highlight great things in movies as well as not so great things, all in good fun of course. So if you love your movies as much as we do, why not give us a listen? We can be found on most social media websites as well as everywhere you go for podcasts at What's the Script. Thank you.
Okay, in terms of our recent episodes, last week we did The Dark Knight, hosted by James. The week before was Dead Poet Society, hosted by me. And then the week before was Disturbia, hosted by James.
Seismic Cinema would like to thank the Fast Camels for our title and end credit track, Tales of the Expected. The Fast Camels are an explosive blend of 60s influenced psychedelia, freakbeat and classic power pop. You can check them out on Spotify, YouTube and on their website through bandcamp.com. Thanks guys.
So James, before we get into all the Harry Potter madness, just want to take a wee second to ask you what you've been watching.
I've caught up with the recent episode of Expedition Bigfoot, so that's not going to be anything soon. So I very much enjoyed that one, and I was doing some work over the last few nights, and I had Lost in the background. And I've kind of, since we did the pilot review of Lost, I've kind of had it on here and there, but I switched it on just the other night there. I'm on season 3 of that now, so it's funny how you forget, you do forget a lot of the stuff, and you just forget, well, I forgot how much a bad person Michael was at the end of season 2, but aye, so I'm slowly but surely get into that, back into that rather. Still on episode 1 of Dexter, and that's all really, man.
Episode 1 of Dexter.
Episode 1, sorry, of season 8. Sorry, I should say. Aye.
I was going to say you've went backwards.
No, season 8, episode 1. So I'm still on that, but I don't done any more than that. I want to give that my full attention.
Cool. Again, I've not been doing too much. I think during the school holidays is when I tend to try and catch some more movies and stuff. But I watched the 3rd episode of Only Murders in the Building, and I started watching this. It's like a new Star Wars Lego thing that came out this weekend. It's called Rebuild the Galaxy. It's like basically people mess about with something and it changes the course of all the Star Wars history. So you've got Admiral Akbar as a clone trooper, and it's just like random stuff, but it's got all the kind of Lego humor. So I was watching a bit of that this morning. Obviously watched Prisoner of Azkaban, and me and Aileen have been watching a thing on Netflix. It's called The Perfect Couple. It's a kind of murder mystery show. It's got what's his name? It's got the guy that plays Sabretooth and is it Sabretooth and X-Men? That person I'm thinking of. Live Screamer, is it? It's been okay. It's not fantastic, but we're kind of halfway through it, so we'll probably kind of finish that off. So yeah, not too much. We'll try to catch some movies over the next wee while. So James, before we get into the review of Prisoner of Azkaban, the 3rd installment in the Harry Potter movie series, just wanted to take a wee second to see what your background is, just in terms of Harry Potter in general, but also this movie in particular.
So Harry Potter in general and this movie. Well, I think it's safe to say, mate, that I'm not quite the Potterhead that you are. I did. So when did this came out? I can't even remember when even the first one came out. But I remember
First one was 2001.
I remember my mum and dad bought my younger brother the DVDs. Is it 1 and 2? I think came out. Well, we did get the DVDs, and I watched them, and I quite liked them. To be honest with you, back in the day, it was just kind of fun, kind of family films. And then just as I watched the second one, it was like being told that the 3rd one was coming out and all the rest of it. So I'd caught it about that time, and there was such a hype about Harry Potter.
Pottermania.
Aye, there was such a hype. I remember watching. Like I was getting ready for school one day, and it used to be a TV show, Channel 3, the Council TV, and it was like I come on the breakfast program, and it was like all these people who were being, potentially getting cast as all for Harry Potter and all that sort of stuff as well. I remember all that, but I just never watched them until the DVDs came out. I remember after that, I bought all the books. So as the books came out, were released, I bought all the books. But I've not read the books in so long, man. So I need to reread them and all that stuff again. This film and the films thereafter, I went to the cinema to see them all. Just because, I did enjoy the films. I had read the books by that point. And I just wanted to, feel immersed in the Pottermania, mate. Do you know what I mean? And the cinema was always stood out.
Yeah.
And so, obviously, this film, and this book, from what I can remember anyway, were the ones that stood out to me.
Right. Okay. Well, that was a big spoiler because that was something I was going to come to later, but we can come back to that. I could basically do a whole episode on my love for this franchise, but I'll keep it short and sweet. It's actually quite funny. We got read the Philosopher's Stone in primary school. I can't remember what primary it was, but I remember thinking I was like kind of too cool for it at first, and I was not, which is ironic because I'm not too cool for anything, you know. But I remember thinking like there was people that were really into it, and I was like, not that keen on it. But then they actually took us to see the first film in the cinema. I think it was Primary 6. And then I was hooked thereafter. And then I watched, well, my sister had the first 4 books, read them, and then I got each of them on their release. And then I just saw the films in cinema, but I've just been absolutely obsessed like since. And I read the books. Well, I'm reading the books to my stepson at the moment. Watch the films on a regular basis, and the Crown and Glory. My background will testify to that. It's not my picture, but I've been to the Warner Brothers studio tour on 3 different occasions in London, which is like all the real sets and things like that. My defense for that is they keep adding new things. Like they've added like the Forbidden Forest, they've added Gringotts. They add things as kind of time goes on. So, and I'm hoping to go for a 4th time and take the kids out over the next year or so. So yeah, big fan. And I always will be. So
That's all right. Nothing wrong with that, man. It probably holds the same kind of in high regard to Star Wars with you, mate.
Yeah, it's there or thereabouts. So yeah, that was our backgrounds on the movie. Just going to share a wee bit of background information on the film before we look at some of the social media comments. So Prisoner of Azkaban came out in 2004. It's actually 20 years old this year, which is incredible. It comes in at 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's a family or fantasy film. And the brief synopsis is Harry faces extreme danger as Voldemort sympathizer, or is he? Sirius Black escapes prison to hunt down Harry. It was directed by Alfonso Cuarón and written by Steve Kloves, based on the novels by J.K. Rowling. It didn't win any Oscars, this film, but it was nominated for Best Score from John Williams, of course, and Best Visual Effects. And I think the Best Visual Effects is something that we'll definitely come back to during the review. It's got a 7.9 rating on IMDb, which is pretty solid, and an 82 out of 100 score with Metacritic. The budget was 130 million, and it made 808.5 million at the box office worldwide. The cast stars at the time, youngsters, Daniel Radcliffe as Harry, Rupert Grint as Ron, and Emma Watson as Hermione, but also has huge names such as, sadly no longer with us, quite a lot of these people, Robbie Coltrane, Michael Gambon, Richard Griffiths, Gary Oldman, Alan Rickman, Fiona Shaw, this will go on just a tiny bit longer, Maggie Smith, Timothy Spall, David Thewlis, Emma Thompson, and Julie Walters, amongst many other names. So quite a stacked cast list there. So James, before I share the social media comments, any big standouts from that cast in this particular film for you?
Just more of recurring characters from the first 2, isn't it? So I did like Gary Oldman.
Some new ones as well, I suppose.
I like Gary Oldman, obviously comes into it. Who plays Sirius Black? I thought it was a interesting pick. They'd also had, because Dumbledore was replaced during this movie, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm. Richard Harris died just after Chamber of Secrets was filmed.
That's right. So I wasn't sure, because I did like Richard Harris as Dumbledore. I wasn't sure how Michael Gambon would take it on. And obviously, who played Lupin again? David
Thewlis.
Thewlis.
I didn't know him. I didn't know him from anything else before this.
Neither did I. And I still don't really know what else he's in after this, to be honest with you. I haven't seen him in anything, but he's just kind of, if I do see him, he's always going to be Professor Lupin.
Aye.
But listen, like the cast from Harry Potter 1 and 2, were excellent. They all worked well together. I think it was all, the relationships between the characters were excellent. And then again, it just continues on, just to add even a wee bit more characters throughout, just because of the nature of the series progressed, you know. So
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed the cast.
Yeah, and a big part of that was Chris Columbus, who directed 1 and 2, because he was always well known for being really good with actors and child actors in particular when he's working on like Home Alone, etc. So really stout cast there. So let's just hear a couple of social media comments before we share our view. So first up is our good friend Project Football Podcast. So he says his 10-year-old daughter says this one is her favourite in the series. Well, she agrees with James there. You'll have to listen on if you want to hear what my favourite is. Her favourite bit is when Hermione punches Draco Malfoy. Well, I like it, but my household is a big Draco fan, so it's a wee bit mixed in this household. And when they go back in time to save Buckbeak. Sorry for the spoilers. And Just Football Podcast also said, probably the best of the Potter films. Dark, moody, complex. 3 leads come into their own, helped by Oldman and a great supporting cast. Could easily have been a 2-parter. I was quite interested in that bit, and I've asked on X what he meant by 2-parter, because I don't really see how this one could have been a 2-parter. I know Goblet of Fire was rumored to be a 2-parter at one point. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts there. We also have a comment, and I'll let James field this one, from our editor-in-chief, Mr. Paul Kelly, has something to say.
So Paul got in touch with us, and he wanted me to read this out in a Harry Potter voice, just because obviously my voice from last week of Batman was so good. He wanted me to do a Harry Potter impression. Unfortunately, I'm not going to do the Harry Potter impression, but I'm going to read it verbatim. Harry Potter is awful. Snape is only the redeeming character. Long live Slytherin. And in true Paul fashion, he watched this in the order of 1, 2, 5, 4, 6, 7. Never actually seen Azkaban, I don't think. Seen Order of the Phoenix, not realising I hadn't seen Goblet of Fire or Azkaban, and I was hella confused. So,
that order just made me feel ill, I think.
Oh no, I did laugh.
And it was like Paul shares my adoration for Star Wars. Maybe not some of the more recent shows on the whole, but in terms of the movies. But Paul obviously doesn't share my obsession with Harry Potter based on that order.
No, he doesn't. I mean, good to go a bit more detail though. Why he doesn't like it and things, you know what I mean? But I'm sure we hear that another time. Maybe we'll do another Harry Potter review at some point.
Oh, we definitely will. James, just before we get into it, did you come across any like trivia or like facts about the making of this one? Do you want to share?
I didn't know.
No, that's fine. I just thought I'd ask. No, I've got a couple. I've got a couple here. I thought were quite interesting.
I must have missed that memo, mate. Sorry.
No, I wasn't expecting it. Just in case you had. You know what I mean? So just a couple to share. Sir Ian McKellen turned down the role of Dumbledore. He said, "I had enough trouble living up to one legend. 2 would have been too much to hope for." He also stated that it would have been inappropriate to take Richard Harris's role, as he had called McKellen a dreadful actor.
I didn't know that.
So I thought that was quite funny. Other ones, Alfonso Cuarón had never read the Harry Potter books or seen the first 2 films when he was offered the job, but it was Guillermo del Toro, who was also offered it, who convinced him and said, "Don't be stupid, read them immediately." Also, and you probably noticed it in this film, it was the Hogwarts students were wearing kind of more casual clothes a lot of the time rather than their robes. And that was Cuarón's idea. He wanted to kind of bring a bit more individuality to the characters and have their clothes kind of show that. I'm a bit mixed on that personally. I feel like they should be wearing the uniforms. That might just be the teacher in me. I'm not sure.
I think it is.
This one's quite funny. The pockets on Tom Felton's robes were sewn shut to prevent him from sneaking food on set. So Draco was getting a wee bit peckish.
He's a wee pocket monster.
Yeah. I don't want to go too many. I'll maybe just do one more. Harry Melling, who plays Dudley, was almost recast because he lost so much weight between 2 and 3. So in the end, he had to wear a fat suit to bulk him up a wee bit for future installments.
All right.
So that was just a few kind of background bits of trivia on Azkaban. If anyone else listening has any more they'd like to share, then please get in touch in the comments or on social media. Right, James, similar to what we did with Dead Poet Society, just going to run through some of the key scenes, and then we'll have a few wee questions and things off the back of that. So a lot of great scenes in the movie. Just before we get into the scenes, is there one particular scene or segment of this movie you think is particularly strong
I think
or stands out?
I wouldn't say it's one that I quite enjoy seeing. It's the night bus scene. And he goes on the night bus, but before
Yeah.
he goes on the night bus, he sees something, and then it's just that kind of with Stan Shunpike, isn't it, the conductor? And it's just, I think it's quite a humorous part of the film before
Aye.
we go into the the more serious nature. Because he learns about obviously Sirius Black at that point, and then
Yeah.
doesn't really know the extent of Sirius Black, but he knows he's on the loose and stuff. I just thought that was quite a good. And like obviously in the film, I think it's quite important that we try and just stick to the film as much as we can rather than kind of the books as well. Because I know you've read the books more than I have, but I know there's certain kind of differences and whatever.
Yeah.
But obviously the shrunken head is funny, and I don't know if you'll comment on that.
Yeah, there was there will be times I won't be able to stop myself. There will be times when we reference the books, but
Okay.
no, I like that, and I actually want to start. It's not one of the ones I'd actually written down, but I've got a real issue with the opening scene of the movie,
Right.
because it totally contradicts something that happens later in the film. Harry's under his bed sheets, which happens in the books, trying to study magic at night because the Dursleys don't let him do it. But to make the start of the movie fancy, they decided to make him use the Lumos spell, right? Remember what happened in Chamber of Secrets when Dobby did magic in the house?
Right.
He got a written warning. 15 minutes later in the film, he says to Cornelius Fudge, he's like, underage wizards aren't allowed to do magic outside school. And he's worried about getting arrested and expelled. It's like they just made him do magic in the very first scene of the film. They totally contradicted themselves. Sorry. Had to get that one out.
I get that. Obviously for the second film, and then he was worried. Obviously, that's probably why Cornelius Fudge was there as well. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and but would they say you're not going to get put into prison for a silly spell or something? Do you know what I mean? Or
blowing up your aunt.
But I think probably as well because there's obviously more to that. Do you know what I mean? Sirius Black was on the list and stuff like that, and you don't know, if he didn't put him. Obviously, I don't know if he would have went to prison anyway. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, I'm just surmising here, but it's probably be better that he was kept under Dumbledore's watch anyway because he Sirius Black being on the list. So he was. So I don't know if that was just to protect him, and maybe it would have been repercussions if Sirius Black wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll never know. Anyway, getting past that, the movie obviously starts with Uncle Vernon's sister, Aunt Marge, coming to stay, played by Pam Ferris, aka Miss Trunchbull, which was a fantastic casting, I must admit. So quite she's like almost as much of a villain as Umbridge, in my opinion. Like, she's just absolutely horrible for Harry for no reason other than he got dumped on her brother's doorstep, and just the way she kind of tears into Harry's parents is quite hard to watch. But then it has the kind of humorous result, which, if you do compare this to the book, I think this was flawless the way they did the Aunt Marge's scenes. Like, they condensed it a wee bit, but just the way they did it and the comedy of her takeoff, I think, were really good as well. So, James, what are your thoughts on the kind of before we get to the night bus, but the kind of opening scene to the movie.
Aye, I mean, you compared Aunt Marge to kind of Umbridge. I think if we actually, obviously Umbridge as a character throughout into Harry Potter 6 and 7, but I think if we had seen more of Aunt Marge, maybe kind of as a character, we could have maybe put her on par with her. But just for the short time she's on screen, I think she was brilliant. Very militant, very Miss Trunchbull-esque, I would say. Do you know what I mean? Kind of whip the young person in line type of thing. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of militant. I didn't like, obviously, she knew how to press his buttons. Do you know what I mean? Even maybe without realising, she's just a scathing person in general. And like, what I didn't like about it, that his father was he didn't do anything, was he a drunk or something like that? I can't remember what she says exactly. But she's openly, slags off James Potter, and then after that, slags off Lily as well, his mother. And what annoyed me about that scene was, Petunia didn't actually stick up for her, but I don't know if you've seen it. Her facial expression at the time was like, "That's my sister you're talking about," type of thing. Do you know what I mean? So,
because it's not always obvious, but later in the series, Petunia shows that she does care about her sister in her own kind of unique way.
Aye.
So yeah, that's good.
But it shows you as well that he can't control his emotions, Harry. Do you know what I mean? He's still a young boy, and that emotions kind of filter into doing the uncontrolled magic. Do you know what I mean? The lights flickering, which is good. Do you know what I mean? The glass smashing and the glass smashes, and she's, I'm too strong for one good sometimes. You know what I mean? So it's almost it's her own fault. But
there's a lot of good comedy in that scene, because Dudley gets like pinged twice by her buttons.
That's
and
right.
then when he gets back up, he's like, his aunt's flying away, but Dudley's just having some ice cream, watching the TV, like smiling away.
It's like watching Wheel of Fortune or something now on television, just eating it, isn't it?
Because it's briefly mentioned in the film, but the kind of subplot to this is Harry wants Uncle Vernon to sign his permission for him to go to Hogsmeade. It's there at the very start, but in the books, there's more of he gets a present from Hermione. It's like a broomstick servicing kit, and he's trying to focus on what that book was saying about looking after your broom. So he was trying to like focus on that. But there's also the bit where Uncle Vernon's pulling Aunt Marge, but then she's about to go kind of too high, and he just goes, "Sorry," and just lets go, and she flies away.
Don't you dare!
I just thought that scene was it. I think it was good drama with the kind of antagonistic nature of Marge, but then I thought the comedy. I think that the Harry Potter movies are actually underrated for how funny they are in a lot of ways.
Aye, no, some characters do come out quite strong in comedy, like Ron does most of the time, I think.
Yeah.
But, aye, there's just kind of wee scenes like that just go a wee bit under the radar.
Yeah. So then Harry goes away. He kind of storming away, does some more magic, which actually does happen in the book, to be fair. And then there's quite a kind of horror-y kind of part in the swing part where the swing and the what do you call it? Seesaw.
Seesaw.
Kind of moving about creepily, but then he sees a dog in the background, which, spoilers, obviously goes on to be Sirius, and they also think it's the mythical Grim throughout the movie as well. But James, did you know, I was wondering about this when I rewatched it just there. Why does he bark so aggressively at Harry when he's actually there to like see him? Like I don't understand why in some senses, but do you not think it was a bit strange?
I know, I don't. It is strange. Like, why don't we just kind of do a wee dog yelp? I don't know. I mean, it was quite aggressive. I don't know. It's obviously to add attention to the scene in terms of.
I know. But when you know, you're like, why is he like? You're snarling at him.
I know. I was also like thinking about this as well, and it wasn't until I dawned on me, right? But also, we know it's Sirius at this point in time because obviously we know he's Padfoot. Then I thought, how does he know where he lives? But then I remembered in the first book, what is it? Hagrid takes Sirius Black's motorcycle to the drive, and obviously Sirius wasn't there, but Sirius he took. Am I right in saying he took his bike without permission and things like that? And
No, I think Sirius gave it to Hagrid,
aye,
and then he said he wasn't going to need it anymore or something like that.
right. But also that doesn't explain why he knew where he lived. They must have just told him, or maybe it's got some sort of kind of memory bank or where it's been. There's some GPS tracker on it or something. I don't know.
Maybe James had been there to visit them in the past and
Possibly
had mentioned it or something. Do you know what I mean?
Aye. But it was a bit strange why he barked so aggressively to scare Harry. I mean, it's like I'm their godfather. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes. But the scene was good, mate. I mean, it was like it was very eerie. It's quite similar to a scene in the fourth one, actually, I think. But you just don't know what's going to happen. Is someone going to come into the bushes? Is the dog going to attack him? And the night bus comes. So it was a good kind of tension builder.
So I know you were quite keen to talk about the night bus. So in the words of Ernie, take it away, James.
Take it away, Ernie. No, it's I don't know. I liked it's a bit comedy in as well in this bit because this massive bus comes along, and obviously it's for like wizards who are stranded. You know, Stan reads out this kind of thing to him without actually looking at him, and then he goes, "Why are you down there?" He goes, I fell over. Why did you fall over for?
What you fall over for?
So that was just and then he goes into the bus. It's like a kind of TARDIS type of thing. Like there's, it's bigger on the inside. It can, all other dimensions, like you can get smaller and all that sort of thing. I just think how fast the bus goes as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like, in the comedy between the Shrunken Head and just the wee kind of gaffs in there as well. Do you know what I mean? We learn about Sirius Black. He's like, who's that person there? And he goes, who is he? He's how do you know about him? Everybody knows about him type thing. Obviously, Harry is being protected. He doesn't really get much of the meal anyway from the Wisdom World because obviously where he lives now. But it was a good introduction to Sirius Black because we don't really know too much about him. So we're on the same point of view as Harry at that point. And then I did like where you off to? I'm going to the Leaky Cauldron. That's in London. You hear that, Ernie? He's in London.
It's like, watch out for the pea soup.
I wish I had the pea soup. I'll eat you or something like that. And he does get pea soup. And the bit as well, before I finish up Night Bus, is like, they're going between the two buses either side, and so they've got to kind of squeeze in between the two of them.
Mind your head.
Why the long faces?
Because the Shrunken Head was a movie only creation, and J.K. Rowling apparently loved it because it wasn't in the books.
I know. That was one of my points I was going to bring up actually. Aye, but it was actually quite a good addition to it. I thought. Do you see the Shrunken Heads later on in the film as well?
Mm-hmm. It's a great scene. I think. See the guy who plays. I don't know who plays Stan Shungpike in this. Who, by the way, is a totally kind of cult hero character in Harry Potter, because he does come up later in the series, in the books anyway. But I thought his delivery. See when he kind of talks through who Sirius Black is and he's holding the paper. I thought his delivery was really kind of ominous and really strong.
It was. I think that it was. Like I say, it was a good introduction to him because he wasn't hitting, but missing. He was hitting every point. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's like notorious. He's the only person. It's escaped Azkaban type of thing. So that creates that own mystery. Like, Azkaban's obviously a prison for wizards and witches and whatever. But to be the only person to have escaped Azkaban, that's a massive deal. And there's no wonder why everybody's on tenterhooks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because in the books he pretends to be Neville on the bus because he's on the run. But they obviously missed that part out of the film. Talking earlier about going to I've actually been on the night bus.
Well, have you?
Because see at the studio tour, there's a back lot that has private drive, so you can actually go into the Dursleys' house and look into the living room. But they've actually got the bus used in the films in the back lot, and you can walk onto the front of it and then kind of look down.
Nice.
which was pretty sweet. So at this point, Harry's meets Cornelius Fudge. He is a bit suspicious why they're kind of letting him go without punishment, and then they quite quickly, the kind of next morning when he wakes up at the Leaky Cauldron, the Weasleys and Hermione are there, and Arthur Weasley kind of pulls Harry aside to kind of explain things, like maybe why he wasn't punished, because Sirius Black is kind of out to get Harry, which is quite a big, like, see, when you look back at these films, it's like, in books, are like kids, they're classed as kids books and stories, but like this 13-year-old's like a murder target for like a deranged escapee from a prison. Do you know what I mean? So it's quite heavy.
It's heavy. I think it's maybe a 9 to 12, maybe young adult. I don't know how you would class it, to be honest with you. When you got read it in primary school, didn't you? I think as the books and the films go on, they get more and more kind of like that. Obviously, because Voldemort isn't featured in this at all.
No, this is the only book he's not in it in any form, whether it's current, past, or you know what I mean.
Yeah. So, but I think it was quite good that way, because obviously it brings Harry aside, and it's like he's out to get you. He's like a follower of, you know who, and Harry always wants to say his name, and he's always told don't say his name. But was it Hermione says the fear of the name
increases the fear of the thing itself.
There you go. So that's what kind of. I mean, if I was told, by the way, you've got a target on your back, he's always had a target on his back. That's nothing's changed. What's changed is that somebody has escaped Azkaban, and the sole purpose, as people think, is to kill Harry. Do you know what I mean? Under instructions of Voldemort. We don't know. Obviously, it doesn't turn out to be that way, but I mean, for a young lad to be told that, and you probably could have thought that the Weasleys could have been, or Arthur in particular, could have been a wee bit more tactful in that regard. But I don't know.
Well,
he does have to know the truth. He does appreciate being told it for what it is. Do you know what I mean? Harry does. So,
because in the books, Molly and Arthur are arguing about whether they should tell Harry or not, and Harry overhears them. So in the books, they kind of have to tell him, whereas they did it differently here. But it was interesting seeing Arthur being a lot more serious, because he's normally just talking about rubber ducks and like batteries and things like that. So
Muggle artifacts, that's what it is, isn't
it? So they get on the train. They talk to Harry, reveals to Ron and Hermione kind of what's happening, and they go into the only semi-empty carriage, and they see Professor R.J. Lupin. Ron's like, "How is it you know everything? It's on his suitcase, Ronald."
That is good.
And I do think one of the standout parts of this film is the portrayal of the Dementors, and how atmospheric it creates it, with the like frosted glass and the lights going out and the rain outside. And I always describe this movie particularly as like the ultimate rainy day film. Like, watch this, rainy day with a blanket, cup of tea. It's got that proper kind of Halloween feel in this film. What was your kind of take on the way the Dementors were introduced?
I mean, I liked them. I thought they were very good. Like, we felt kind of part of the whole journey, because I think we're in there, and it's like it was getting very cold. You see your breath and things like that. It was raining outside. It just created a real kind of bad vibe. And as the Dementors came onto the carriage, this kind of cloaked being, it was quite scary. Do you know what I mean? I think it was like, what is this? We've never seen this before. And then the whole kind of scene where he's kind of tries, like a better term, kind of suck his soul out, basically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Creating that, kind of taking all the happiness. That's what a Dementor does. It takes out every bit of good from you, and then kind of steals it, essentially. that was quite chilling. Do you know what I mean? Pardon the pun. But then we see, obviously, this kind of person who was sleeping. He just kind of, obviously, we used the Patronus charm. But I don't think he says Patronum at the time, does he? Just kind of,
Yeah.
he shows his wand, and then you can see the light taking the Dementors away. I liked it, mate. I thought that scene was strong, because usually on the trains to Hogwarts, it's all kind of fun. Do you know what I mean? There's always something kind of, you got a banter between, the three of them. This is different. This created a different tension to what's going to happen in the film. Do you know what I mean? And I liked it, mate. I thought it was a strong part of it.
Yeah. It was in terms of Lupin, like obviously Harry kind of learns later in his Hogwarts career how to do like non-verbal spells. So there is a chance that Lupin just used a non-verbal spell. But I also thought it worked quite well because it meant there was no dialogue in the scene. It was just him revealing the kind of white light, and then it kind of transitioned to Harry hearing what we learn is his mother screaming, and then he kind of wakes up. And I felt that was something the film did really well throughout, was the way they did the transitions between scenes. I thought there was a lot of quite clever uses of those. Like sometimes films can overdo them, but I felt this film did it really well.
Yeah, no, you're right. I didn't know you mentioned his mum's kind of scream either, because it wasn't it was a faint scream. Do you know what I mean? It was, so that was quite oof. What was, and you're always kind of wondering who that was, even though you kind of make a guess that it is Harry's past. But yeah, you're right. I don't think there was. I think it was quite clever in terms of the way that they moved from scene to scene. Like, I'm going to just quickly jump in here. I want to jump in your Twitter comments, but I want to just say I understand. Was it Just Football Podcast that said that they might have done it into 2 films? I forgot how long this film was. Right, so I can see a point to a regard, but then I don't know if it would have been too much to have it over 2 films. I mean, there's certain things that are drawn out, and we'll come to them, I think. But if they're going to do them right, then possibly. But I think it's probably too early in the actual Harry Potter franchise to butter out 2 films at a particular time. But that being said, understand where he's coming from and that.
Yeah, I do think I am a massive fan of splitting films into, like, I understand why they did it with Deathly Hallows, but I also don't think that could be another podcast. I'm not a big fan of how the series ended movie-wise. But save that for the future. But there obviously are things that are missed out from this film. Quidditch being a big one.
Yeah.
Because this is actually the book where Harry wins the Quidditch Cup for the first time. And the Firebolt has a lot more prominence because obviously his Nimbus 2000 breaks, and then he gets the Firebolt, and it leads to more arguments with Hermione. Maybe they didn't want to have too many arguments with Hermione in the movie, because Harry obviously gets the broomstick at the very end of the film. So obviously there's things that they miss, and there's a few other things that they miss, as we'll kind of come to. But in terms of the Dementors, it really it creates a really kind of like, usually like they get back and then they find out the Philosopher's Stone getting stolen by Halloween, or people start getting petrified in Chamber of Secrets by Halloween. But in this film, they're just arriving. The Dementors are at the gate. You see the horseless carriages for the first time, and it is that kind of different feeling. James, what did you make of the Hogwarts choir?
Robert. I don't know, man. I don't think it was needed, but
it was just an Alfonso Cuarón like specialty, wasn't it?
I think so. I mean, I think the only good thing about that was the frogs at the end. No.
Will we do a wee rendition?
Yeah, you can do it, mate. And you go.
No, I can't do it.
I did the frog.
So there was an interesting part. So did you notice Professor Flitwick looked a lot different in this film compared to Philosopher's Stone? Warwick Davis.
Did he have longer hair or something like that?
Remember, he basically looked like a bit of a mini Dumbledore in Philosopher's Stone. He had like the big beard and he sat on top of the books. And this one, he's got brown, kind of balding hair and like a suit. So basically, he was originally they originally just cast Warwick Davis as the choir conductor, but then I think one of the directors decided they liked the look so much that just became who Flitwick was.
Right.
So they kind of kept that going. And also, I read that the theme, I think the song was like the Bubble Bubble Toil and Trouble song, but they used the kind of theme from it later in the film as well. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. So they did that, and then obviously Dumbledore does, which is my favorite quote of all time. It's one I kind of lived by during lockdown. Was the whole happiness can be found even in the darkest of times if one only remembers to put on the light. I've actually got a framed picture of that in the living room. I really like that quote, and he says that, but then he goes on to give the kind of really dire warning about not to cross the Dementors and how they're not forgiving, and it's really just setting the Dementors up to be a really big part of the film. And that plus Sirius Black's looming presence, it's a real kind of good build up for the movie.
It's very tense, mate. It's kind of threatening at the same time. I think, like, obviously Dumbledore's speech is the first time we actually see Dumbledore being as a new, as a new cast. Obviously Richard Harris, who played Dumbledore before, was very softly spoken, and I thought he did a great job. Where I like Michael Gambon as well. I think he's more kind of, obviously he's not as softly spoken as Richard Harris was, but I think he is quite. I don't know if menacing's the right word to use here, but he's got kind of authority about him. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if maybe Richard Harris had that.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I agree. I think Dumbledore was better. I think Richard Harris was better at the comforting, like, mentor figure.
But
I think Gambon was better at the kind of fiery Dumbledore who hated Dementors and fought against Voldemort. So I don't know if Harris could have done those scenes as well.
No.
But I think they both got their strengths. Apart from, did you put your name in the goblet of fire? Do you ask an older student to put it in for you? Are you absolutely sure? Dumbledore said calmly.
Spoilers for Goblet of Fire. Oh, mate. Oh, good. You should do impressions this week, mate. No. This scene was good, mate. I do like the quote as well, which I mean, but obviously the uncertainty between the Dementors and then the uncertainty between Sirius Black. We already know that the Dementors are unpredictable. We know that for the train scene.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be messing around with them. But also in the scene, there's that warning, but then there's the kind of nice bit as well where we get to see that Hagrid is now a teacher in the school. Do you know what I mean? So that was nice to see.
And he knocks the table over with his belly.
And all look at him, didn't they? Like Snape and all that, going like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
But no, that was a nice scene. Eventually we got to that. Well, we got to that bit anyway. But what was it? Was it Hagrid teaches them mystical creatures?
Care of magical creatures.
Magical creatures, aye.
So I think that's a good segue. And what's the script? I really enjoyed your segue part in your recent We're the Millers episode. If you've watched it, you would know. So it's good transition into Buckbeak, and obviously we've been doing a lot of not always intentional teacher related movies, but we love Hagrid. I would probably class Hagrid as maybe my favorite character of the franchise as a whole, but with a few exceptions, he's not a great teacher.
You're a wizard, Harry.
There's the whole blast-ended Scroots where he gets breeds like a crab and a scorpion or something into this horrible creature in the fourth book. But this one, in his first kind of teaching experience, he's not actually at fault. Obviously, Buckbeak becomes such a huge part of the film and the end of the film, but it really is Draco Malfoy's fault for not listening to the kind of safety instructions. So, what did you make of Hagrid's first lesson and kind of Malfoy's kind of sabotage?
See, with Hagrid's concerned, he's obviously this is his new role. Do you know what I mean? And he's not been a teacher before, and it's almost as if he's trying to find that line between being a friend and a teacher, in a way. But he's asking for that kind of reassurance for Harry and Hermione and that, like, am I doing okay type of thing, and that's nice. Do you know what I mean? Because he obviously has a lot of value in their opinions. Hagrid does things by the book, doesn't he? I mean, he explains, this is a hippogriff that you have to, it's like doing, I don't know, it's like doing a thing in class. I mean, you have to tell them this is the expectations. This is how you do it. Don't do it any other way because you could get hurt. Do you know what I mean? So he explains all that. He uses Harry as a guinea pig there. You know what I mean? So Harry bow to Buckbeak, feed him what did he feed him? A squirrel or something like that.
Ferret? Is it dead ferret?
A ferret. A ferret it is. And obviously he gains the respect for the hippogriff, but Draco's just been a wee. He's just what he usually is. Draco. I mean, he doesn't want to follow any instruction. He probably thinks that Hagrid's less of a teacher than anybody else, and he can maybe get away and just kind of bend the rules a wee bit more. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't take things seriously. It's just an animal at the end of the day. Doesn't understand the implications of what could happen. Although he does find out what happens.
But his injury is very superficial. Like, he basically puts it on for ages after the fact.
Oh, well, I know, but that's just him, isn't it? He's just creating mountains out of molehills. But then the panic is like, oh, it's just a scratch. Well, it's just a scratch, Draco. Do you know what I mean? And then obviously Hermione is like, you need to get him to the hospital wing. He could be really hurt here, and that's where he carries Draco away. But it shows you, that scene shows you how, for Hagrid, that he loves animals, doesn't he? He loves these creatures, which kind of shines through the fact that he's willing to kind of pass on that knowledge and stuff like that. Obviously, Buckbeak is a pivotal part of the film.
Yeah,
we find out.
There's a few funny quotes in that scene. They mainly come from Draco. He's like, "You're not dangerous at all, you great ugly brute." And then there's, I can't remember exactly what he says when he's getting carried away, but he says something about you and that chicken or something like that.
I can't remember what he says. He's like, "Oh, my arm." He's getting like a baby.
So that was the first of the two teachers. So I think the way the first lessons went were total different. So we've actually recently talked quite a bit about Lupin, and something I forgot to say during the kind of trivia was that John Williams was really keen to play this part, and that he wasn't allowed because J.K. Rowling insisted.
John Williams.
What did I say?
You said
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Aye, Robin Williams. J.K. Rowling only allowed the cast to be British or Irish unless it was like a foreign wizard like Victor Crumb and Goblet of Fire. So they actually turned down Robin Williams, who really wanted to do this role. I think Robin Williams, I read, also wanted to be Hagrid at one point.
That's like really, that can't always mean, man, because Robin Williams would have been an absolute. I don't know if this. Obviously, Robin Williams, and we're going to be a bit deep here, right, and whatever, but I don't know if Robin Williams playing the parts of Lupin would have maybe helped him in his life. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Obviously, he's a troubled soul, whatever, but
he was in enough like loved franchises, I suppose.
I know, but sometimes I mean, I remember watching the Harry Potter kind of anniversary thing on Sky when it was on, and you just get a real kind of family bond with them all. You know what I mean? And I just don't know, but it annoys me the fact that they were quite like that. Only hiring British and Irish actors because obviously, who was it that said that? Was it J.K. Rowling?
Yeah.
That pisses me off, man. Because I don't understand why you would actually limit. I mean, I'm not saying that the cast there didn't do a great job. They did, but I would like to have seen Robin Williams play Lupin, or another actor. You just don't know.
Saying that though, it's not to take away. I thought David Thewlis was a great Lupin, and I thought he gave a great performance in this film as well. He wasn't quite what I pictured him looking like from the books, but something worth mentioning is the adult cast, like James Potter, Sirius. They're actually 10 years older in the movies than in the books. Like James and Lily were meant to only be like in their early 20s when they died, but they look obviously a lot older in this.
Mhm.
So maybe naturally didn't quite look like what he was going to do. So we kind of touched on this scene already when we did our Dead Poets Society review. So James, do you want to take us through just the kind of Boggart introductory lesson from Lupin?
The Bogart scene.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So they had to go to different classrooms first, didn't they? So they were experiencing the whole kind of different. Oh, we'll take a different lesson. Oh, the lesson in a different class. So we had a different environment for them, which is probably good for students, isn't it? They go somewhere else to learn. So basically, a Bogart basically transforms. It's a creature that transforms into the things you're most scared of. So for Ron, it appears to be for Ron. Sorry, for what's his name, Neville. The person he's more scared of is Snape. If it's not Snape, it's his gran. Quite two kind of scary people in his life. And he's got the picture, so he doesn't know what's going to come out there. But he's wanting to picture Snape, and then in order to try and conquer the fear, then they've got to try and make that thing they're scared of into something that it can be they're not scared of. Do you know what I mean? Like a better term. So for Neville, Snape comes out the Bogart, out the what do you call it?
Wardrobe.
The wardrobe. Because the Bogart's the actual thing. So the wardrobe, and the spell is riddikulus.
Yep.
This
whole class is ridiculous.
I just said that. So riddikulus, and then he basically turns Snape. Snape dresses up as his grand clothes to make it a funny and less scary thing, right? So that's what it does.
I love that Alan Rickman would have dressed up like that for that
I
scene.
know. Watching that, I'm going, fair play to Alan Rickman doing that. Do you know what I mean? It's just his whole mannerisms as well during that. So basically, it turns your worst fear, thing you're most scared of, and then you can use the riddikulus to try and kind of counteract that. As you go through the different kind of students, so we'll get Neville, who I just spoke about. We get Ron, who we all know, he's scared of spiders, and then this big spider comes out of the wardrobe, and then the riddikulus, the spider has get roller skates on, which obviously if a spider has roller skates on, it can't really do anything to you, which is funny. It's good, right? And they're all having fun. It's everybody's laughing. It's a good bit of fun. It gets to Harry. Now, instantly when you get to Harry Potter, he's the thing that's going to turn into the most scared of. You instantly think it's going to be Lord Voldemort, which is interesting because we just don't know what he looks like at this point. We don't know. Obviously, we've seen a version of him in the first Harry Potter. We've also seen a version of him in Chamber of Secrets, being a younger Tom Riddle. So it could have been either of them. But what it turned into was the Dementor, because that was the thing that probably you feel the most at that particular point, because how you felt at that point.
Yeah.
And you want to go through that again. And then obviously it does turn into Dementor. It's swooping in. But Harry's frozen at this point. He's froze. And then Lupin jumps in, save the day. And then obviously the Bogart turns into something as Lupin steps in front of it. Now, obviously I read the books, I knew exactly what it was and things like that, but I'm just wondering, would the folk have clocked a full moon to a werewolf at that point. I don't know. It'd be interesting. He doesn't let it get to a full moon. He just
Yeah.
all he sees is a moonlit sky, really. And he obviously turns it to a balloon and sends it back in the wardrobe. Class done. I really liked this scene, mate. I thought it was a lot of. It brought a lot of fun to something. I mean, I know it ended quite abruptly, and I think it had to. It was quite good the way it did finish. But when do you see the students in Hogwarts having as much fun as that? You never do. Not to my recollection, anyway. I don't think that.
A lot of them said in that scene it was the best lesson they've had. It was the first practicals. They had Quirrell in the first book, the movie, who's like scared of his own shadow. Then they've got Lockhart as a fraud. So it's like, yeah. One bit in the Boggart scene was how terrifying was that clown, by the way?
I don't mind clowns, mate. I don't mind them, but
I'm not terrified of them.
Oh.
But I can see that someone who was scared of clowns would have found that scene unbearable.
Well, sorry, my dog's barking. Note this down.
Turn into Paul.
I mean, if folk are scared of clowns, I mean, that whole action of it kind of being it's moving towards you. I get that. I don't mind clowns, but I know there's a lot of folk who do, are scared of them, whatever. So, in actual fact, there was that a device put in there for the viewers to be scared of as well. Potentially, I don't know.
Yeah, James, this seems a really good moment to ask you, what would your boggart be? What's something you're really scared of?
I'm not really scared of anything, mate. No, listen, right, okay. I don't mind spiders. I don't mind if to push me here, a snake would be one, which was one in actual. But really, I mean, I don't know. Suppose I've got I don't mind saying this. I think it's quite a common one actually. I've got a fear of dying, right? And I don't know, but always something that I always think about and overthink it. So that would probably, if I was to be placed in front of a Bogart, that's what would happen. That's what it'd be. But I don't even know how that would actually be represented.
That'd be Voldemort's as well.
You know what I mean? You try to say me and Voldemort have got something in common?
No, but that's what fueled him, was his fear of dying and to overcome that. So,
typical. And it's funny they say that because like I've always been asked the question as well about what would my favourite superhero power be, right? And folk would say invisibility, and mine would be immortality. That's something I've always said that, and it's funny how the biggest fear I've got is dying, but the one I want, the power that I want is immortality. So it must be a thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know how that would be represented in a Bogart sense. If I'm not going, if they can't give me death, then it would probably be a snake or something, just like Indiana Jones.
I'm gonna go on a totally different vibe than you. My Bogart would turn into me missing out on an episode of What's the Script. So you better follow them and get those notifications on,
You sure you're not getting paid with the script? I mean, that's the second week now.
I actually, when I'm hosting, I do look for opportunities when I can fit them in. So,
but I must say the Periscope one was an absolute belter. That ended me, mate. That was just, that was good, mate. So
that was in the moment, though. That wasn't planned. That one.
Aye.
So obviously, the big reason, as you said, Harry wasn't allowed to face the Boggart was Lupin, and this is something that actually builds the relationship between Lupin and Harry, because Harry can't go to the Hogsmeade weekends, so he spends a bit of time with Lupin, getting to know him, and then he eventually goes on to get the kind of anti-Dementor lessons where he's trying to learn the Patronus charm. So the first thing I'd like to talk about in that regard is the scene on the bridge, and I'm making no apologies for continuing to do this, but I've been on that bridge. It's also in the backlot of the tour. I'll stop flexing at some point. But I thought that was a really good scene, just in terms of him getting to know Lupin on a more kind of personal level, and also finding out this is where we find out that Lupin had a connection to James and to Lily as well.
It was a lovely scene, wasn't it? Like he's going for supported study at the end of the day. He's going for some extracurricular activities, and it just kind of builds that relationship because he's just been a classroom teacher, but he does offer the services, to learn the hard spells, if you want to call it that, and the Patronus being one of them.
Advanced higher level.
Advanced higher. Like, it was a nice scene because obviously just on that bridge they're just looking outward, and then he said, Harry must get sick of this, and he does say, you must get told this all the time, you look like your dad and you've got your mother's eyes. Everybody says that to him. And then obviously it's a spoiler alert, but in the 7th book Snape said it to him as well, but you would never actually think he would have said that to him. But he does. But it was an important scene, mate, for them to kind of establish that relationship, that kind of trust, isn't it? That he's got his back. He knew James and Lily. Essentially, they ran a bit together at school. James always had his back. He helped him through tough times and all that sort of thing. And we also will learn what that is. I thought it was quite a nice scene, mate. Do you know what I mean? And Harry found comfort, because I think Harry's been finding it tough to actually find a male or a female kind of role model in his life. He's got Dumbledore, obviously, do you know what I mean? And
Hagrid as well, I suppose.
Hagrid, he's got Dumbledore, he's got Hagrid, but I think he needed somebody else as well, because Dumbledore's the head teacher. He can't always go to Dumbledore. Hagrid's just, all due respect, is Hagrid, but I think he needed somebody who's... I think he needed somebody who knew his mother and father like the way that Lupin does, or Sirius does, essentially, and I dare say Snape as well. But I like those scenes, mate. It was very poignant, I think.
Can I liken it a wee bit to when Luke meets Obi-Wan in A New Hope? Because obviously Obi-Wan, they don't mention it Vader at that point, but Obi-Wan knew Anakin really well, so that was Luke's kind of insight into his father, in a sense.
No, they just
that's the Star Wars reference tip. What was interesting in that scene, though, is, do you not think the way he spoke about Lily is like, oh, yes, I knew her. It kind of made it look like Lupin was in love with Lily, just in that movie scene.
I don't know, mate. I may be reading too much into this. I don't know. I mean, I think Lily was very thought upon, do you know what I mean? With everybody. I thought everybody, well, we already know that Snape was in love with her, do you know what I mean?
Spoilers.
Spoilers. But if you haven't seen Harry Potter, where have you bloody been? I don't know. I didn't think that, mate. To be honest with you, I didn't think he was.
It was just a line delivery, to be honest.
All right. I mean, I didn't take anything from that. I just kind of thought, they were just kind of, pretty close.
Yeah. So Harry's big motivation in this film, because although Quidditch isn't in it, he collapses. The mentors come to one of the Quidditch games and then he falls and almost dies, and that's when the Nimbus 2000 gets broken. It's not in the movie, but he wants to learn how to protect himself from the Dementors should this happen again, because he's like extra affected by the Dementors because of what happened when he was a child. So then Lupin says that he'll teach him, and he kind of goes through the process. He's at first not thinking of happy enough memories, which is why he's failing, but then he ultimately starts succeeding, which culminates in the end of the film as well. But this is like no mean feat. Like, this is described later in the series as Newt level magic, which is like 6th and 7th year Hogwarts when he's in 3rd year. So he's basically doing like an advanced higher in 3rd year. And characters throughout the series do Patronuses, and Harry obviously starts teaching the DA, Dumbledore's army, how to do them in Order of the Phoenix. So it's quite a big scene. Patronuses play quite a strong part in the rest of the series, so I think it is a really important scene.
No, it is. Like I say, it's the whole obviously he is affected more with the Dementors. Obviously, I mean you see that throughout, but I think he's quite right. He wants to protect himself. He wants to make sure that you know if he ever is ever put in front of one, they knows how to deal with it. I did obviously during the kind of going back to the Quidditch match when he obviously is he falls and his broomstick breaks. He's in the hospital and it's like, oh, what happened? And he goes, you fell, Dementors attacked you, you fell off your broom. And he goes, no, what happened in the game? So obviously that was quite a funny aspect of that.
I actually will openly admit I made a mistake there. They do show the first Quidditch game where he does fall, but they don't show the rest of the games and they don't show them winning the cup. So
No.
yeah, I made a mistake there, but they do show that first scene.
No, they do, and it's quite obviously they're more traumatized the fact that his broomsticks has been damaged by the Whomping Willow, which again plays a prominent part later on in the film as well. But
yeah,
just getting onto the actual Patronus charm, it was imperative for Harry to actually learn that, because obviously we see what happens later in the film in terms of saving people. But then obviously training Dumbledore's army later on, because without Harry's expertise, and he is an expert at it because you see what he done at the end of the film, then by training the Dumbledore's army in the Order of the Phoenix Book 5, Film 5, then it sets a good kind of precedent of how strong and how, I don't know, committed they are to learn the hard magic. Because it is a very hard spell to master, as Harry found out.
Definitely. One character we forgot to mention, which is important towards the end of the book, is a close personal friend of mine. Only joking, but I have met Emma Thompson, who does live kind of near to where I live. Got a photo with her. Professor Trelawney's character, who's the divination teacher, who's widely regarded as a bit of a fraud, but it's a funny thing that all her predictions come true, like Neville smashing a cup and all these. There's more in the book than the film, to be honest. But I just thought I'd mention Professor Trelawney because she obviously has an important part later in the film.
She's an awful teacher, isn't she?
To some students, she has a sub cohort. Parvati and Lavender are her big pals, her big fans.
Nah, I didn't mean that. Emma Thompson's portrayal of what's her name again? Professor Trelawney.
Yeah.
Aye, couldn't remember her name there. No, it's very good. She's very eccentric, shall we say? And I don't know. I mean, I personally, the scenes are important. Obviously, the divination stuff is important throughout the whole actual books, because the prophecies that are kind of are discovered and stuff, and so there's a lot more about the prophecies in the book. Now, I know I said at the start of this podcast I'm not going into the books, I'm not going to, but there's a lot of the prophecies. I know, no, that's all right. That do come true, especially when it comes to Neville and it comes to what's his name, Harry Potter. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, so they do their wee kind of definition, and then the teacups, isn't it? Aye, and then
we do the tea leaves.
The tea leaves, and it's like you've got the Grim, which is basically the Grim is the black dog, and then the black dog obviously kind of refers back to that time in Pivot Drive where I've seen a black dog.
And at the Quidditch game as well.
That's right. That's right. When the Quidditch game, and then also the Pivot Drive.
But it turns out Sirius just came to watch him play Quidditch because he wanted to see how he would do it.
Which, telling you, I wondered this. I was like, how does? I know in the books it does tell you, because Hermione does say something, right? But I thought at the end of the film, I was like, how does Sirius know that Harry's broom broke? And he
was there, yeah.
He was there. So that answers that question.
Just before we move on from Trelawney, at first, when I was still working in retail before I was a teacher, I actually served Emma Thompson in a shop. And in my head, I just wanted to scream, "Are you in the beyond? I think you are." But I didn't do it.
So where did you meet Emma Thompson? Is it when in retail? Was
She used to come into a shop I worked in, and before I was a teacher, and she is also quite involved with the school I work in. She's comes to some of the events and stuff like that. Her and her husband.
where
So
did
I
she
met
stay?
her at but 10 minutes from me, to be
Oh,
honest.
really? Well,
Could have got her on.
missed opportunity, mate. That's
I know I actually did. So moving on, talked about the Patronus. The next kind of big reveal, obviously, when Harry eventually gets to Hogsmeade, he obviously gets there with aid of the Marauders map, which is given to him by Fred and George, which shows him all the secret passageways and where everybody is, and is again a really useful tool in the future. And he goes to Hogsmeade a couple of times, but on one occasion he overhears a big conversation between a random assortment of people who are having a wee end of term drink. I think there's McGonagall, there's Cornelius Fudge, I think Hagrid's there. Sometimes I get confused between the book and the film. And then there's Madame Rosmerta, who's the barmaid of the Three Broomsticks.
aye.
And they're all chatting about school, and they mention someone called Peter Pettigrew who got killed by Sirius Black. And the big reveal here is that Sirius Black and James Potter were best friends, and that James made Sirius Harry's godfather. So then Harry's got this information that his godfather is Sirius Black, who is kind of went over to Voldemort's side and essentially betrayed his parents. So Daniel Radcliffe does a good job in this film overall, but his crying scene in the snow has always stood out to me as maybe one of his weaker parts.
Aye, that's obviously the crying scene in the snow in this film, and the crying scene in the snow in Dead Poet Society as well, was done a lot better. No, I think this obviously was a massive turning point for Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Because the revelation of James Potter and Sirius Black were best of friends to the extent that Sirius Black still to this day is Harry Potter's godfather. So. No. So that kind of shifts his focus a wee bit, doesn't it? Because he's out for revenge more than anything else. He wants to seek him out. Because right now it's like, oh, he's after me. But now I think, given the information he's gathered, when you call it that, he's obviously kind of, he gave up my mum and dad.
Yeah.
And that doesn't sit well with him, obviously. So he's got an obsession now to get him, because he betrayed his family, really, didn't
he? Yeah. So before we get into the kind of epic finale to the film, I think there's just a couple of gaps to fill. So Professor Trelawney obviously gives the real prophecy. He will return tonight. That one. Basically, Voldemort's servant, who we think is Sirius Black, is going to rejoin Voldemort. That's the prediction. But there's another couple of things that tie into this as well. And see, because I've watched this film and read this book so many times, I don't know about you, but it seems so obvious now. First of all is Lupin, because in the books it's like an orb he sees in the Boggart lesson, but in the movie it's literally the moon. Hermione brings it up, or Lupin obviously does that lesson on werewolves.
Well, Snape does that because Lupin.
Sorry, I meant Snape. And David Thewlis looks quite werewolf-like. I think maybe that's a big reason why he was picked. His face is quite wolf-like, and he's got all the scars. So that was quite telegraphed, I would say. The other two bits was Hermione, Ron going, "Did you see her come in?" Hermione just randomly appearing quite late to classes, which again is, now it's why else would that be happening if it wasn't what happened in the end? And the last bit is, and it's quite clever how they do it. See when they're getting on the Hogwarts Express, Mrs. Weasley's holding up Scabbers, and she goes, look at Scabbers, don't lose him. And obviously reminding us who Scabbers is, but also, and I thought this was quite clever, they show the Whomping Willow quite a lot during transition scenes. Just again to remind you, like, this is the Whomping Willow. We've seen this before. Again, this could become important. That was actually something I really liked about the film, from the filmmaking point of view, was how they transitioned the scenes. And they also showed the transition of the seasons. Like, it showed like the leaves falling in autumn, then it showed like the snow coming in. And I quite liked the way they did that throughout the film.
No, I like it as well, because it does tend to go to the Whomping Willow for those moments, doesn't it?
Yeah.
'Cause,
It's clever though, isn't it?
Because as seasons change, the trees go with the seasons. You can see it like shaking the snow off and things like that. The leaves are falling from it, and at the same time showing you that the Whomping Willow's got a purpose in all this.
Yeah.
Obviously the Nimbus 3000, the boomstick, and then the transition moments, and it's not just the actual this film. Does it in 1 and 2 as well?
Yeah.
Whomping Willow. Do you know what I mean? So and I think it's important because it's taking you through the actual school terms as well. Because I think in the first two, Harry has to stay at Hogwarts, doesn't he? He doesn't go anywhere else. He stays in the school grounds. So when it's like the Christmas holidays and things like that. So I think it's quite good that it does that. But the transition moments are good, mate. I mean,
Yeah.
I know you're going to maybe touch on the cinematography and all that sort of thing, but I think you clearly know that there's a state of transition. It's going from one part into a new season. It's quite smooth that way.
It's just the whole show not tell, isn't it?
Aye.
Because there's a particular one where the camera just follows a wee bird down to Hagrid's cabin for the first lesson.
That's right.
Which I thought was quite clever. That this is why I picked this film. If I'm honest, the way Alfonso Cuarón directed it, with the shrunken head, the way the Dementors impact the environment, the transitions, I think it's just a really kind of cleverly made and aesthetically pleasing film.
No, it is. Can't argue with that, mate.
Yeah. So that was my original question. Sorry, just looking back, was the Lupin, Hermione, and Scabbers stuff? Was it really obvious, or do you think it was just cleverly done so that you could piece it back together? Does that make sense? Do you only know when you know? If that makes sense.
I mean, really, after the fact, obviously in hindsight, and you go, oh, that makes sense, because really what happens, Hermione, Ron, and Harry would always go to class together. Why would Hermione not be there? And they made a point of that. They made a point to the fact they didn't arrive into the actual class right together. They just were sitting there, and then it just turned out that she was either behind them or sitting beside them, or whatever. How did you get there? Surely they would know. They would move, and so in hindsight, in that regard, I wouldn't have.
Surely they would have pressed her a bit more on this. Like,
aye, I mean,
outside of that time, like, what's going on? Do you know what I mean?
But Ron was the only one that noticed as well. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, he loves Hermione, doesn't he?
So a wee crush on her, yeah.
Aye,
we handhold.
Aye. So he knows. So when she's there, he knows. Do you know what I mean? So Harry's no that arse really, but you think that they would be. Where have you been? But they obviously don't do that for the purpose of what's going to come later on. Was it obvious? I don't know if it was, mate, to be honest with you, in the film. I mean, I didn't. If I was watching this film, I would never have. That's a time travel into this at all.
It's probably just because I'm so familiar with it. It just seems so obvious retrospectively, but that's what it was. So I think we're nicely set up for the kind of climax to the film. We kind of put the puzzle pieces in place. So obviously Buckbeak, after the Malfoy incident, is basically has a hearing and then gets sentenced to death, and then the executioner, like cartoonish executioner, the big massive axe and the covered head, McNair, he turns up, and then Harry Ron and Hermione go down because they don't want Hagrid to be alone. A few things happen. They find Scabbers. Harry gets hit in the head by a rock, which comes up later. And eventually, with a wee bit of help from Dumbledore, whose full name, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, gives them time to get... actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's later in the film. So basically, they run away. They see Malfoy. That's when Hermione slaps Malfoy, and then they hear the axe whooshing, and they think Buckbeak's been beheaded. I got ahead of myself there.
You got
and
beheaded
that's
yourself, though?
I got beheaded myself there. Yeah. And that's when Scabbers, who they've just found, just starts to act a bit nuts. He bites Ron, sprints away, then all of a sudden, Sirius Black in dog form arrives. It kind of takes away the notion of him being the Grim because Hermione and Ron see him as well. And then he essentially drags Ron, breaking his leg, and takes him into the Whomping Willow, which turns out is connected to the Shrieking Shack, the most haunted wizard dwelling in Britain. They obviously threw in for movie effects the whole Hermione and Harry getting swung about by the trees and stuff. What actually happens in reality in the book is Crookshanks puts her paw on the knot of the tree to let them through because Crookshanks, Hermione's cat, had befriended Sirius Black and was trying to help Sirius get into the castle, which is one scene we didn't touch on, was where Sirius kind of almost attacks Ron when he gets into Gryffindor Tower. But then they get into the Shrieking Shack, and then that's where all the kind of big revelations come. So obviously we find out that, well, at first Lupin arrives and they're hugging, and it seems like Lupin's been the one who people had suspicions over, who's been helping Sirius Black into the castle. What was the first time you read the book or seen the film, what was your take at that point where Sirius and Lupin greet each other kind of warmly like old friends?
Yeah. I like the whole scene. Scabbard does go mental. I mean, he bites Ron, they end up getting into the, would you cry it, Shrieking Shack. When Lupin comes in and then they're hugging each other, it's like, well, Lupin has, and Lupin always kind of does a turn, like the way he confronts Hermione and goes, well, Hermione, you are the brightest young of your age. It's almost as if he's done he's turning bad, and it's like and then you've got, what's his name? Sirius is like, we've got to kill him. So right away you're thinking, well, it's Harry Potter, he's got to kill. Give him a minute. The boy has to know why, and then it turns out it's Scabbers, and that revelation of Peter Pettigrew. Because what we didn't touch on was the fact that the map, Harry Potter brings the map to Lupin's attention. Obviously, Lupin is the one who created it with Padfoot and Prongs and what's his name, Pettigrew as well at the same time. Wormtail, sorry, that was his name. So he knew that the map didn't lie. If he's seen Peter Pettigrew there, then that was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Which obviously raised suspicions anyway that Sirius Black was innocent. So, Sirius Black says, once Scabbers, he's it's 12 years for a commonly, to live a common garden pet, whatever. At this point, Snape comes in. Snape, he's saying, I told Dumbledore about you, talking about Lupin, helping Sirius into the castle, blah, 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 all friends, all the rest of it. And I did like the exchange between Sirius here and Snape. It was quite good.
There's a particular line that's brilliant.
Why don't you go along and play with your chemistry set?
Because they obviously hate. Because if you go back to the Lupin Boggart scene, Lupin is the nicest of that friend group, probably towards Snape.
Aye.
But he still doesn't miss an opportunity to humiliate him in front of the class for the dress and stuff. It would have been a good twist if Lupin had been bad, but obviously we're glad it wasn't the case. But do you not realize they conveniently forgot to mention any names? They were like, let's kill him. Like they didn't mention like any names. That's obviously on purpose, but
I left it for ambiguity, didn't they?
yeah,
Didn't know who they
yeah.
were trying to tell. Do you know what I mean? And
Not
then-
you, you're rat.
Scabbers.
No, the best parts were Sirius's point. He's right there, and Ron's like, "Who?
Right.
Me? Not you, you're rat." Gary Oldman's got some great delivery in this scene. It's like,
Gary
"Oh
Oldman
well,
is-
Snape, yet again you put your mind and came up with the wrong answer or something like
Wrong,
that."
wrong conclusion. Aye.
It's a great scene. However, with the book hat on, it's missing a lot because it's never actually said that James, Pettigrew, etc., are the Marauders that created the Marauders map.
No.
Like, you could maybe work it out through the names, but it's never actually revealed in the movie, which is a big criticism of the film.
I know, but then it's kind of, I know it's never revealed in the movie, but even when Snape takes the map from Harry in Hogwarts at night time, the Snape was actually the map was obviously made to track people's whereabouts, but also to offend Snape as well. Do you know what I mean? If he ever tried to get into it, so that's why when Snape tried to open the map, it insulted him.
Messrs. Mooney, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs offer their compliments to Professor Snape and ask that he keep his abnormally large nose out of other people's business.
That's good.
So then Snape's there, and they all eventually point their wands at Snape and knock him out, and it's like, oh my god, we attacked a teacher.
I know. I mean, thanks. Well, obviously, Harry wants to know the truth at this point, doesn't he? He's obviously kind of bought into the fact that Pettigrew's on the map. He wants to hear Sirius and Lupin out. He trusts Lupin, doesn't he? Really? And if Lupin is with Sirius, then I think he
Well, he does, but he's a bit suspicious of him. Like, at that point,
I know. But like I said, the way he was acting towards Hermione anyway. Do you know what I mean? I think he wants to know the truth. Obviously, he's still. I don't know when. He's still kind of blinded by revenge anyway, but he wants to know the truth. He does know the truth. So in order to do that, he's got to take Snape out. And also that's the reveal that Pettigrew uses the spell to get Pettigrew back for his animagus form.
Yeah, it was quite well done because they miss him twice with the spell, and then as he dives to go through a crack in the wall, they hit him, and then he just fills up that gap.
Aye.
And it's weird how much does Timothy Spall look like a rat?
I know. He does. he plays on really well, actually. He plays the character really, really well. See that scene where he obviously the rat's running away from like this spell. I don't know if you ever had the DVD of the Azkaban, but I remember falling asleep to that film. I get woken up by that. They had the title menu. It would be that scene.
Do you not hear does he not jump on like a piano key at one point?
That's what I mean. It's the piano keys.
It's
the piano keys.
There's a line in this scene that I particularly love, and it's like, "What would you have done? What would you have done?" He's like, "I would have died rather than betray my friends." That's a great line.
I think you like Gary Oldman, mate.
That's the part where you as the audience see like Sirius as a good guy. Like he wouldn't react like that if. So basically, what the truth was is that Sirius was the Potter's secret keeper, so he alone knew where the Potters were hiding when Voldemort killed them. But he thought that people would think that was too obvious, so they decided to make it Peter because he was the kind of Neville Longbottom of the group, and they wouldn't suspect him. But then Wormtail kind of betrays the Potters, reveals the location, and leads to the death. But Sirius didn't necessarily know who was doing it, so I think Lupin and Sirius both thought each other were the secret keeper, and that's why they didn't really speak over the years. And it wasn't until they saw Pettigrew on the map, because the reason Sirius escaped prison in the first place was there's a picture when the Weasleys go to Egypt at the start of the film, and he sees Pettigrew on Ron's shoulder. and he's missing like his front paw, which is like the equivalent of the finger, which he cut off when he pretended to kill himself. So you've got Pettigrew, Sirius, and Lupin, which I'm surprised at because Lupin doesn't really seem like the character who'd want to murder somebody, but maybe it's just he hated him that much because of what he did. But then Harry ultimately stops them doing it because he doesn't want them to become murderers, he doesn't think his dad would have wanted them to do it. But this also comes in useful in the future because in the 7th book, Pettigrew essentially kills himself with the hand that Voldemort gave him because he owed Harry one for saving his life. It was like kind of a life debt kind of scenario. And then they decide to kind of take him to the Dementors instead. But then the clouds part, James, and everything breaks loose.
It is the full moon is upon us. Lupin, is turning to a werewolf, and hell does break loose. Was it Sirius says to, "Have you taken your potions tonight, Remus?"
This heart is where you truly live. This heart.
No, it was good, mate. I mean, I liked the actual transition from a human to a werewolf. That was good.
It was really well done.
I liked that, and then obviously, in order to try and keep Lupin away, basically Sirius has to turn to his animagus form, Padfoot, to try and battle. It's the only thing he can really do. Well, Wormtail turns it back into his animagus form, which is obviously...
And he waves goodbye.
Bye-bye! So that was and obviously it's got a good wee battle, do you know what I mean? And then I'll skip a bit here and all that sort, but the Dementors come and Harry's trying to actually protect Sirius from the Dementors, but at the same time he's leaving himself exposed. He's the one. Both of them are getting their kind of souls ripped out essentially at the same time. Sirius's line, was it he comes out his mouth again? It's the soul, isn't it? Really, what they call it something.
I think how have you? They do the Dementor's kiss, where the Dementor sucks the soul from the person. But what I actually think has happened there is it's just a visual of the happiness getting sucked out of them. That's how I viewed it. Because I think the kiss is more when they lower their hood and they actually suck it out of their mouths, which doesn't sound very good.
No.
This scene, just before that, the scene actually showed potentially Snape's true colours a wee bit, because although he'd been humiliated and cursed, he, at the first, with no hesitation, throws himself in front of Harry, Ron and Hermione for protection. Like, if he was as bad as they made out up to that point, then why would he be so protective? Do you know what I mean?
No, I forgot about that bit actually, because he comes out the Shrieking Shack passage and he does protect them. He puts himself in front of them.
Yeah.
No.
So Harry eventually passes out, wakes up in the hospital wing, and it turns out Sirius is going to get the Dementor's kiss, essentially lose his soul. But then all looks like it's lost until the man himself, Dumbledore, shows up, says, we can still save Sirius, we can actually save another life, aka Buckbeak, if we act fast. And that's when it's revealed that Hermione has a time turner, which has been given to her so she can take extra classes. And then Dumbledore's quite vague about it. 3 turns should do it. They go back in time, and they essentially go back to the time just before Buckbeak's execution.
It does. So again, meddle with time travel as a plot device. I don't know if I like it or I dislike it, mate, to be honest with you.
I quite liked how they did it in this film, I must admit.
I mean, if you go back in time in this film, you always go back in time to this bit. I mean, so they went back in time, so you cast your mind back to the before Buckbeak's execution, it was Harry and Ron get hit at the back of the head with stones or something like that, rocks. You look out, there's no one there, but actually it was them hitting themselves to get the attention that fudging that were coming. So they were always there at that particular point. So if they go back in time, they're not to be seen. They follow the rules of time travel. We can't be seen by anything, or anyone. Sorry, I should say. And then they can go back. They save Buckbeak. They kind of lure Buckbeak away from when we've got the fudge and all that inside the.
Do you know what's funny though? It seems like Dumbledore always knows what's going on, because even in that scene, he's obviously stalling for them to take Buckbeak away. So it seems like Dumbledore knows what's going on in every like alternate version. Do you know what I mean?
But does so Dumbledore must have known that they went back in time to do that, I reckon.
Which is weird. That's a bit of a mind melter, that bit.
Because he was the only person that knew, other than Ron. Well, does Ron even know? I can't remember what happens at the end of it. But anyway, Dumbledore mustn't have known, because he orchestrated it. Really.
He's like, I've got quite a long name. Sorry.
So they say Buckbeak, they lure Buckbeak away, and then they go and obviously they follow the events of what happened about 10-15 minutes ago. We were outside the Seeking Shack, Whomping Willow. The werewolf turned, and then you get to the bit where, again, the line on the the beach line.
Yeah, it was like a beach near a river.
A setting, wasn't it? And then the Patronus, from the point of view of Harry before the time travel scene, the Patronus charm was coming across. It was knocking all the Dementors away, and obviously the Patronus was a stag, which Harry would think that's my dad. My dad came back and he's helped Sirius, he's helped me from the Dementors. But as we move into the time travel aspect of it, it was actually Harry that the future version of Harry who saved himself and saved Sirius at that point. It's quite clever. I do like that aspect of it. I think the time travel, I mean, there's a lot you can go into it. I don't have much time left today, but there's a lot you could unpack with the whole time travel aspect of it.
It's going to be a two-parter.
It could be. All right.
It's funny because although I know this film so well, when you actually, this is one of our longer podcasts. When you actually come to break it down, there's actually so much in it in terms of themes and plot lines and interconnected plot lines, and it's quite a meaty film, really.
It is. We've got to maybe another 10 minutes or something. We hadn't even got to the time travel aspect yet, which is its own kind of has its own kind of pros and cons, I reckon. But no, I'm not sure if I dislike it or I like it. I'm in between, mate, to be honest with you. I don't know if it was a bit too long, that whole bit, but at the same time, it was needed. I think it's about half an hour. That whole time travel scene was about half an hour, I reckon.
But it's there's one bit I didn't like, and it was very un-Hermione like. She almost gave the game away by going, "Is that what my hair looks like from the back?" I was like, it's not till like Goblet of Fire Hermione actually starts to care about her appearance, really. Do you think it seemed a wee bit out of character?
It did, actually. Yeah, she was even in the books. She was always a kind of mousy kind of character, wasn't she? She didn't really kind of.
Wasn't until the Yule Ball in Goblet of Fire when she was
like Victor Crumb appears.
Dating Victor Crumb, yeah. So they basically, that happens. They manage to rescue They take Buckbeak up to. They wait a wee bit of time, then they take Buckbeak up to rescue Sirius. And then Sirius escapes. They have a nice wee moment. One bit we forgot to talk about was the fact just before Pettigrew escaped, Sirius basically said that Harry could come and live with him. So it was quite a heart-wrenching bit that Harry had that wee bit of hope, which would have produced a really good Patronus, and then it was kind of whisked away really quickly.
I know it was. It was too risky though. And Harry had to have some kind of stability, really.
He's quite a tragic character, really, Sirius. he spends most of his life in prison on the run, and then spoilers eventually dies at the end of the fifth
Yeah.
book. So
That was a hard one to take.
yeah, and that's kind of it, really, in terms of the movie. The wee scene at the end with the fireball, I don't really like it. It's a bit cheesy. It's like, see, if you're not going to include it within the main plot, just don't include it, because it's just like just Harry. It's like a weird freeze frame of his face at the end. if you know the bit I mean.
I think they just had to force it in there because they hadn't introduced it before. Do you know what I mean?
Because he needs it in Goblet for the dragon scene.
Aye.
So that's obviously why they did that. So yeah, I think really strong film. Just a quick question before we get into the ratings, James. Do you prefer the book or the movie for this one? Have you got a strong preference either way?
I'm going to say the film now because I've not read the books in so long, mate, that I would it would be a bit unfair. I've seen the film more times than obviously read the book, and just because of that reason, I would just say the film, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not my favorite of the books. To reveal, my favorite movie and book might be a wee bit controversial in some circles. I've always loved The Chamber of Secrets because I've always loved a murder mystery, and I've just always loved that film. But in terms of I would say the movie's better than the book because I think Alfonso Cuarón's directing style and visual style really brings so many aspects to life. But it does miss out some key information in terms of like the Marauder backstory about how they learned to become animagus to keep Remus company, that kind of thing. That's the one thing we forgot to talk about is the fact that after all these events, Lupin resigns, a bit like the Dead Poet Society ending. And he gives Harry the map back, and he's like, "We'll see each other again," that kind of thing. But Lupin was he was Professor Keaton for these Hogwarts kids. He kind of like brought Defense Against the Dark Arts alive for them and really made them enjoy their learning.
Well, it did. Compare it to the last few. We had obviously Quirrell. Who was the Professor Lockhart? Was it
Lockhart? Yeah.
Who was a fraud.
The fraud, yeah.
So,
James, just based on film alone, what would your seismic stars be for this one?
See, before I touch on the seismic stars, mate, obviously that's about the time travel, and then
you're back on the time travel again.
Obviously, if Voldemort or anyone else had access to the time tunnels, then that could be catastrophic, obviously. But it's safe to say that all the time tunnels were destroyed in the fourth film.
Fifth film.
The fifth, sorry, Order of Phoenix, sorry, in the Department of Discovery, Mysteries.
The Time Turner actually makes a comeback in the Cursed Child play.
I've not read that.
I've read the script for it, but the story's awful. But I've heard the stage play is excellent, so I do want to see it one day.
Anyway, my seismic stars, I'm going to go with 8 out of 10.
I'm going 8 as well.
8 out of 10, mate. I'm going to go with.
Yeah,
I think it was a good film, mate. A lot of meat to the bones in this one. It unpacked a lot of Harry's, mum and dad's kind of history. I like the idea as though of actual Voldemort in it. Like his name isn't like you said at the start of the pod, past, present, that sort of thing. It was all to do with something else. It had links potentially to Voldemort, but nothing else. That was good. It was nice to see that.
No, I was just saying the only places I'd really mark it down would be shoehorning the fireball. I understand why they did it, but I think it just was a wee bit of a weird ending. Also, some of the kind of key missed information, but again, they do have time restraints. I understand that. So I think 8 is a really fitting score for this film. It's in my top 3 Potter films. I love Chamber of Secrets. I also think Order of the Phoenix is really strong, better than the book, in my opinion. We've actually done, just for a wee shameless plug, we have actually done a Harry Potter movie ranking before, but we've never actually done a review of a movie. So check it out.
I want to go back and listen to that, mate, because I wasn't part of
it was actually just me and a friend of me and Paul, a guy called Andrew Strachan. Andrew Strachan did the ranking. It was good fun though. Just check it out.
Yeah, I didn't think Paul would have done it since he's not a Potterhead.
He wasn't there now.
Alright, okay.
Right. So just to finish off, we are Seismic Cinema, and you can follow us on X, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and Facebook. And you can watch or listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and Amazon Music. Remember, we are 148 subscribers, 2 away from 150. And as Dumbledore said, happiness can be found in even the darkest of times if one only remembers to click that subscribe button. And yeah, and I think there's only one thing or two things left to say. One being, I'm Colin. I've probably not seen it.
I'm James. I've probably written an essay on it.
And Paul definitely did watch this in the wrong order. And the last thing I'd like to say is mischief managed.
How